Hi friends, so welcome to CareersTalk, and in today's session we are going to see wonderful question. This session came out because of the last week interview question. Can we change the duration of the sprint length? That is, we are going to cover in depth today. Okay, so before starting this session, I would like to thank Sunan Sharma for this wonderful opportunity what he gave to me to present myself and my outcome. Okay, so let me share it. So, yes, here it is. So, how to identify sprint length and how to change the length of the sprint. And as you all know, this is Sindhu Nagendran. And thank you, Sunan, once again. Let me go into this. So, identifying the sprint length. Always we may get this kind of questions in our interviews. Can we change the length of the sprint, or how can we identify the sprint length? Yes, we can go with the shorter sprints of like 1 week sprint or a 2 week sprint when we want to get faster feedback loops and we want to get more reviews and prompt decision making kind of situation, and our item is very complex and uncertain environment. In this kind of situation, we can go with the shorter sprint length of 1 week. Even in many biggest organizations or concerns, 150 milliseconds and all. So that kind of sprint durations of sprint length also do exist in the market when we are not clear at the market is very emerging. In that way, we can go with the shorter sprints. However, we are having so many challenges in the shorter sprints. Let me take you guys to the in the next slides of that the content. So when we should go for a longer sprint length, it can be like 3 months or 1 month, when the team is very matured and we know and we have very well defined MVP, minimum viable product, and requirements are clear, user stories are readily available in the product backlog, and every sprint we are having the product backlog refinement session properly, and our overall PBI looks very good, its health is very good. In that case, opting for a longer sprints may be very of the requirement, and we are having established process and overall clarity, maturity, everything is there. In that time, yes, we can go with the longer sprints because team must be in the position of self-organized, and if the team is in the cross-functional background and they have the clarity on their goals, yes, of course we can go with the longer sprints. Moving on to the next slide. What could be the challenges in shorter sprints? Yes, I said in the first slide, taking up the shorter sprints for early feedback loops when we are not clear, many ambiguity, many dubious thought process are running, then that time we will go for a shorter sprint. However, it is not very easy to have shorter sprints also due to some complexity. Like if you're taking up 1 week sprint, though that events, scrum events, what we are having as a planning, review, retro, everything should happen in that sprint duration of 1 week. So in that case, the time consumed by this event itself will occupy a quite good amount of time for us. Additionally, since things are not stable and require more frequent adjustments on the product backlog, so refinement itself we will consume more when we are starting during the initial days of our sprints. Like for instance, sprint 1 or sprint 5, we are in that stage. Is of course we can consider shorter sprints. However, when we are considering shorter sprints, we will have this kind of issues. So in that case, challenges is like more time is being occupied in the scrum events and the product backlog refinement, that we need to really consider and think how we can make it as per our requirement or as per our team size and everything. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Can we change our sprint length? So till so far the first 3 slides, you can get some idea whether you can pick longer sprint or shorter sprints. Yes, of course, your team is very mature, you can go with the longer sprints very easily, and the mission and the roadmap, everything is clear. Yes, you can do it. But when you are looking for market change or something like that, then that time shorter sprints will be helpful. But once we started our sprint, in between, if you're thinking that, let's say example, I crossed some 25 sprints so far, can I change the length of the sprint? Can you guys change? Yes. So if yes, how? What and all we need to consider? What factors we need to remember before changing the sprint length? However, during the execution of that sprint, can we change the sprint length? No, we can't do it. So once after that completion of that particular sprint, we can make next sprint length extended or maybe reduced, however your team wish. Okay, how? But we can change the length of the sprint for sure. So changing the length of the sprint, it is not very easy and we cannot do it very frequently also. Okay, that is what we are going to see in this slide. How frequently should we have sprints? So it is not at all advisable having a very frequent change in our sprints, like every 2 sprints we are changing the length of the sprint, or every sprint we are changing the length of the sprint. That is not at all advisable and shouldn't have that way also. However, it is important to provide a strong justification why our team members or our product owner or scrum team is requesting or opting to change for the sprint length during our retro meeting. It's not like simply we can come and change things. So we need to provide some super good justification to the team members, to everyone. What is the intention behind it? What is the pain we are going through? Everything. Okay. So this decision not just going to impact only numbers in a day of a days in a sprint. So many factors we need to consider, like planning, daily scrum, PBA refinement, review, retro meeting, and other factors as well. So if I'm deciding in this retro meeting that I want to change my length of my sprint, we cannot go ahead and immediately change it in the upcoming immediate sprint. We are starting sprint the next day once we finish off our previous sprint, right? So we cannot implement that immediately because it's not just implementing change. So many things are there. Okay. So what are all the, what needs to be considered when we change? So before we are making this change, we need to consider is, say for an example, if I'm extending my sprint length from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, to accommodate that right away, I should have the product backlog refined to accommodate the next to 4 weeks duration, right? So that and all we need to consider, so that we can't change immediately. We should take some 1 or 2 sprints gap, then only we can bring up the change so that we can go in a smooth phase. So team has a fine product backlog item, refined groomed product backlog, and team is mature to accommodate the change, to adapt or accommodate the change. Clear goal of product vision, mission, and the goal, everything. Clear path and requirements. Clarity on the requirements is also essential. Scope changes are very minimal or non-existent. When we are increasing the length of the sprint, our scope changes or should be very less or shouldn't be. That way, if you are having, we can increase the length of the sprint. And team is in the performing stage or adjourning stage. In that stages and all, we can consider to change the length of the sprint. And self-organized, yes, if the team is self-organized, at that time, yes, we can make this kind of changes. Can we change it immediately? I ordered this, already answered for this question. Yeah, we can change, but however, don't rush it to changing it immediately. Okay, take time to consider the implications. Think about the sprint review and ensure stakeholders are well informed ahead of time. Like, we must be having some schedule. If you are already having some 1 week sprints, 1 or 2 week sprints in place, we must be having some schedule in our agenda, right? Some schedule in our calendars. So all the stakeholders will be in that mindset. So that time we need to inform the stakeholders well ahead of time to be ready with everything, and reschedule the meeting invites. Assess the readiness of the product backlog items. If I'm about to accommodate 3 weeks of sprint, then I should be ready with that item, that much of item. Okay. Capacity and velocity cannot be predicted abruptly. Being a scrum master, today is Wednesday, I'm closing my sprint for today. Next today, Thursday, I want to start. In our retro meeting on Wednesday, we guys are decided that we can implement or we can increase the length of the sprint. Then that time, we as a scrum master may not have the capacity what we are going to have, right? So in that case, we cannot go with some assumption also. We need some time to collect the data as well. We need to be ready with that capacity, velocity, everything with our team members, right? So that only we can facilitate the meeting very productively, or otherwise the meeting may not be very productive. In that case, we need to consider that that and all. Okay, so capacity planning is uncertain at the moment if you want to implement it right away the next day. So these are all the few challenges we will face if we are implementing it immediately. And identifying any dependencies that may be in the pipeline. Example, we know that in the next sprint we will be picking up this item. So when we want to pick up that item, we must be having some dependencies which we were already discussing in the team. Okay, in other team. So as per our sprint length as of now, it's a 2 week sprint, and so that we can get it later, something like that. Okay, now it's a 4 week sprint. We want the dependencies right away because in this sprint, I'm going to accommodate that particular user story. So this kind of dependencies and all, if something is there, we need to sort out before we change the length of the sprint. Of course, if in case due to some discussion in between with your team member when you're in this progress of the sprint, 2 week sprint, in the first week itself some discussion came in and some serious discussion, so that time your team members are saying that we would like to change the length of the sprint immediately as soon as possible. Yes, we can discuss with the product owner quickly by scheduling some half an hour meeting or 45 minutes meeting, and we can decide okay from next sprint onwards, because again we are having 1 more week to finish off the sprint. So we are having 1 week to plan for everything: capacity, velocity, inform to the right stakeholders, inform to the leadership team, management team. 1 week of time we are having. So that time, yes, we can consider to change the sprint length in the next sprint. But if you are not having that time duration, strongly recommend you to pass for a moment, pass for 1 or 2 sprints, then you can try to implement these things. Okay. So what if can't change the sprint length and team member complaining that user story is very big to accommodate in a single sprint? So what can we do in this kind of situation? Okay. I can't change the sprint length also. However, my team members are saying that the user story is very big to accommodate in a single sprint. In that case, what and all we can do? So yes, the first option, if the team members are saying that user stories are very big to accommodate in a single sprint, we can try to extend the sprint length, and we already discussed what are all the options to extend the sprint length or discuss the sprint length, what are the challenges we will face. However, on the other hand, the other options are you can slice the user stories based on the inverse techniques, onward techniques appropriately. And based on the slicing, you can prioritize what item needs to be in this sprint, either Masco technique, 2020, risk, Carnot analysis, WSJ. This kind of techniques you can use to prioritize and bring what is essential in that sprint. And split your user stories into smaller and more manageable ones using techniques such as story mapping, splitting by workflow, slicing by acceptance criteria. These techniques and all we can implement and we can get it done. So bring some experienced persons to support them if your team members are saying or complaining that user story is very big to accommodate in a single sprint. They may, if suppose your team member are not having that much great skill set or technical perceptions, okay, so that time we can bring some experienced person and we can help the team members check for the capacity and velocity and empirical data, and add additional resources may help. So example, if your team member are saying that in this sprint 2 weeks of length we can't make this, so we can try to accommodate few resources. However, whenever we are adding few resources and when we are removing few resources, that sprint productivity or that sprint outcome will be little bit less compared to the previous sprint. That is a very common truth, you all know, universal truth. But over a period we can get it. So that is the idea, whole idea behind it. Okay. So this is another one separate interview question you may get. What if we cannot change the sprint length and team member complaining that user story is big to accommodate in a single sprint? These are all few options in addition to changing the length of the sprint. Okay. One option is when your team member are complaining about user story, changing the length of the sprint and what and all the options for that one. Another option is how to slice the user stories up. So stay tuned with us to know more detail about how we can slice the user stories and what are all the techniques. I said some workflow. So similarly, we are having so many options to bring the user stories to small. Okay. So in my next video, we can see how we can make it. So stay tuned with us. Thank you so much, Sunan, and thank you so much, Careers Talks, for this opportunity. Thank you.